Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I got a number of emails about this story. This is from Mike Murphy, subject line, church makes big purchase in Florida. And then in the body of the email, second coming preparations, check this out. And then leaves a link and then an excerpt from the article. We'll look at another article to cover the story. And then this is from Anonymous, biggest warehouse deal of 2023. Then leaves a different link. Just happened upon this and thought you'd be interested. I wonder why this is needed. Perhaps it's just for an investment or ... Anonymous is fine. Well, thank you, Anonymous. And by the way, thank you, Mike. And then I got another one from Marcy Molnar with the same link that Anonymous left. Thank you, Marcy. So what I want to do is first look at the details of this story. This is from the Miami Herald that we're going to be reading. And then that first link was from Commercial Observer, but I'm going to just go over this one because it covers the same information. And this one has a little bit more information. And then we're going to look at the church overall. I'm not sure how big of a story this really is. It could be significant. I don't know. But I've done other stories in the past talking about church finances and investments and properties and stuff like that. And we're going to do like a little review because one of the more eyebrow raising things was when we were talking about this guy, David Nielsen. He was the whistleblower on the church. The church got in trouble with the SEC, whatever. And I don't think it was really that big of a deal, but this whistleblower left a really interesting comment he made a really interesting comment as he was being interviewed. He said that the money was intended to be used for the second coming of Christ. Like he was talking about a bunch, just like billions of dollars that were just not being used or not being used for like charity or anything else. It was just like sitting there. He said, well, I was told that it was supposed to be for the second coming of Christ. Who knows if he's being truthful or not? I wouldn't be surprised if he is being truthful. But we're going to get to that and look at some maps of like church property and some stories that talk about what the church invests in. But let's start here with the Miami Herald. Mormon Church buys $174 million industrial park in, I don't know how it's pronounced, Hialeah, the biggest warehouse deal of 2023. And this story is from, well, it looks like it was updated today, January 8th, 2024. Okay. It was the biggest industrial transaction in Miami-Dade County in 2023. So in Miami-Dade County, it was the largest industrial transaction. 6 warehouses in Hialeah were snagged for $174.3 million, but the buyer wasn't a major corporation or manufacturer. It was the Mormon Church. It's not yet clear what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church, plans to do with the massive warehouse space, but the Utah-based LDS Church is already one of Florida's largest private landowners, with holdings that include a sprawling Central Florida ranch and a huge swath of timberland in the Panhandle. The purchase is an investment play, said Chris Spear, a principal at the brokerage firm ComReal. He said, quote, the Mormon Church is one of the largest real estate investors in the U.S. And that's true. Like I said, we're going to be looking at these maps here. There's one from the Salt Lake Tribune. I don't know if this map is based on the same data from this other one that we're going to look at, but let me just zoom out so you can kind of see. These are all church properties all across the United States. Keep in mind, these are place markers, so it's not like this indicates how much land when you're looking at the place marker. It's just showing you where it's located. And obviously some properties are going to be bigger than others, but you can see that the church has properties, not a few, between agriculture, commercial. These are the categories: agricultural, commercial, general / miscellaneous, easements in personal property, other, hospitality, industrial, mixed use, multifamily, office, public and semi-public, retail, special purpose, and vacant land. So the church has all sorts of properties all across the United States, and I'm sure they probably have some in other countries too. I don't know. Let me know if you know. Okay, but anyway, let's continue on. Property Reserve, an investment branch of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, purchased the 1.3 million square foot site at Beacon Logistics Park from Coral Gables-based Codina Partners. Okay, I guess this is, let's see, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints paid for, I don't know if these are the warehouses, but I guess this is the, well, this is the park. Look, it has like the lighthouse thing right there. And it said it was at Beacon something. Let's see, Control F. Beacon Logistics Park. So, and I'm assuming these are probably the warehouses right here. Okay, continuing. Though the church's plans aren't clear, one commercial real estate expert said the recent transactions show demand remains high for warehouse space in South Florida, given the state's population boom and growth of online shopping and home deliveries. Buyers have an insatiable appetite, quote unquote, for warehouses in South Florida, said Stephen Wasserman, or what, International Vice President of Colliers. Quote, e-commerce has changed the world. Whether you want to buy a sweater at Macy's in the store or have it delivered to your house, that has changed everything. E-commerce is stronger than ever. So just based on that statement, I would guess that's probably why. It's probably just another investment. It probably adds to the church's portfolio of investments. I could be wrong, but okay. Mormon Church in Florida. The LDS Church is one of Florida's largest private landowners, owning more than 2% of its land mass, according to reporting from the Salt Lake Tribune. The church has owned Deseret Ranches, a 290,000-acre cattle and citrus farm spanning 3 counties in central Florida and located about 50 miles from Orlando International Airport, for over 60 years. And we're going to look at a Deseret News article that talks about farmland, because I'll show you why the church would have that. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but they said some stuff about owning farmland. Farmland Reserve Incorporated, a nonprofit entity of the church with the headquarters in Salt Lake City, purchased the Florida farmland in 1950. The Deseret Ranch's website says the ranch, quote, serves as an agricultural investment and resource to support the church's charitable efforts, end quote. The website also says the ranch pays property taxes, unlike religious institutions, and supports the local economy. Here's a temple, the Fort Lauderdale Temple. The Church of Latter-day Saints has 267 congregations across Florida, 19 of which are in Miami-Dade County. There are roughly 22,470 LDS members in Broward in Miami-Dade County, according to a 2020 report from the Association of Religion Data Archives. The LDS Church grew to over 17 million members and 31,000 congregations worldwide in 2023. Latter-day Saints believe that there will be a second coming of Christ, and that those who have obeyed certain religious covenants on earth will, quote, return to live with God and their families forever, end quote, according to the LDS website. And they have a link for Second Coming of Christ for some reason, and it takes you to the church website under topics and questions. And I guess Miami Herald was trying to figure out, what is the church thinking in buying this warehouse? What are they doing? Does it have to do with the second coming? So they, included this in their article, because later it says the church's website outlines certain tenets that seem reflected in the accumulation of real estate. It states that a large part of LDS culture is welfare and learning to become self-reliant, or being able to take care of the spiritual and physical needs of themselves, their families, and their communities. That can include starting their own business, being wise with finances, or accumulating resources to prepare for uncertain times. Yeah, and we've been counseled to do that for a long time, because you do not know if there's going to be a natural disaster in your area, some emergency. We know that judgments are coming upon the earth, and they have been, and they've been on the earth for a long time. We've covered what Wilford Woodruff and Joseph Fielding Smith said about how when Wilford Woodruff dedicated the Salt Lake Temple in 1893, that's when the 4 angels mentioned in Revelation that were told to wait until we seal the 144,000 in their foreheads. Then you can release your judgments. They were released at the dedication of the Salt Lake Temple. And since that time, there have been many disasters and wars, and it continues until today, and it's picking up with in frequency, and so it just becomes a smarter and smarter idea to prepare yourself. Just have some emergency supplies, have a 72-hour kit, have food storage. If you can buy some land, it's probably a good idea to buy some land. We have land, we have chickens, and we usually have cows in our pasture, so it's just a good idea. Okay, continuing, the LDS Church also operates resource storehouses or bishop storehouses, which are like supermarkets without the till, and are paid for by donations from church members. There are 260 facilities across the country that offer food and household products to anyone, in or outside of the church, who is struggling. The idea is that should the world descend into chaos, which it has been, basically, it's like the song "We Didn't Start the Fire." It's always been burning since the world's been turning, but it's just increasing. The idea is that should the world descend into chaos, LDS members will be prepared to weather the storm. Yes. And then here's the second article, but I don't have anything to share out of this, but I'll leave a link for it in the description below in case you want to check it out. And from here, we'll move on to the next part, where we're just going to talk about the church as a whole and its investments. I did a video, this was February 23rd of 2023, called "The Church's Savings for the Second Coming, Fined by the SEC." And that's what we were talking about at the beginning of this video. I'll just read what I have highlighted here. In 2019, David Nielsen, a member of the church and former Ensign Peak investment manager, filed a complaint with the SEC alleging that Ensign Peak had amassed $100 billion in accounts intended for charitable purposes, but that money had not directly funded any religious, educational, or charitable activities in over 20 years, according to the Washington Post. Nielsen said that the money was intended to be used for the quote-unquote second coming of Christ. In a 74-page narrative that accompanied his complaint, he wrote, quote, "Would you pay tithing instead of water, electricity, or feeding your family if you knew that it would sit around by the billions until the second coming of Christ?" End quote. And my answer is yes. Yes, David, because I am part of a church, and my beliefs are that regardless of how the money is used, I'm supposed to do it because it's a spiritual, everything is spiritual. There are no temporal commandments. It's all spiritual. It's designed to have you demonstrate to the Lord that you value his commandments and you can rise above the worldly game of life that many other people play, those that are worldly minded. So, like I said before, and I think I said it in that video, I would not care if the church got pallets full of cash and loaded them onto rockets and then shot them into space, because that's not the point. I don't care what it goes to. It's great that the church uses it for charity, education, whatever. That's really good. It makes sense. But it's also a very real fact. Okay, if you have faith, like I do, and any member of the church should, that the second coming is going to happen. And furthermore, it's not just going to happen magically, like as far as like the transition between the pre-second coming world and the post-second coming world. And there's probably still more things that need to be done, excuse me, with money before the second coming happens. I don't know exactly how everything's going to go. I've already shared on my channel my thoughts about New Jerusalem, how it's essentially already there. If we go to Google Earth, we've researched the original plans for New Jerusalem. It's not supposed to be a huge metropolis. It was supposed, when it was, if the saints had been allowed to build it, it would have been a city of 15 to 20,000 people, and it would have been a stake. And at the center of the city, there would have been the 24 temple complex. And so basically a stake is a city and a city is a stake. And right now, today, we have a stake center right here, and we have one of the temple buildings, which is currently being used as the Independence LDS Visitor Center. But it was built according to the specifications of the buildings that would have been the temples that made up the 24 temple complex. When they built this building, they consulted with David O. McKay, and they looked at the original plans for New Jerusalem to determine which temple this would be and to build it in the right spot. And according to the specifications revealed to Joseph Smith about how big the temples were supposed to be. So it's already there in a sense. If we have to build, I haven't seen anything to suggest that we have to clear out this area and then redo the roads and turn it into the grid that it's supposed to. I haven't seen anything that says that. Bruce R. McConkie talked about the fact that Zion is people. It's people. And we have a stake there. And furthermore, we have many members of the church that live now in the Kansas City area. I should have pulled this up. LDS, meeting house locator, maps. And so going back, 30, 40, 50 years, we probably didn't have that many members of the church in Kansas City. But guess what? Now we do. We do now. And more than that, we have a temple. There's enough there to have a temple. And it's not a small temple. It's like a regular sized temple. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, New Jerusalem is already there. And the LDS Visitor Center could easily just be renovated at any time and turned into a temple and dedicated as a temple. And then later on, as once the second coming happens, I'm sure everything would be fleshed out after that through an orderly process. So anyway, I don't know exactly what the money will be needed for, but I don't think everything's just going to be magical. And I don't think there's going to be like a clean cut between our current economic system and the future law of consecration and united order. I'm sure there's going to be a transition process. I'm sure there's going to be a transition between the currency that we use now and the currency that we use in the millennium. And so the church is ready. It's probably ready to rebuild. I'm sure it's ready to build whatever needs to be built before the second coming, all sorts of things. So it makes perfect sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me, David Nelson. Okay, but that's just because I'm a faithful member of the church. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the Salt Lake Tribune. We already went through all these different categories, and you can see there's properties all over the United States. Let's zoom in on the Kansas City area. And there is a lot of land here. Most of it is either this gray color. It's hard to tell. I don't know if one of those are forest green and the other one's gray. But anyway, it seems like there's a lot of special purpose or vacant land in the Kansas City area. Recently, over the last few months, there was a story that came out that the church was selling a bunch of this land, if not all of it, in Lee's Summit. I was there just recently, actually, and in September, because we went to there was a girl in our ward that was getting her endowment, and so we went up there to be part of that and got to go check out this area. Went to the temple, but anyway, the temple, I think it's right. Yeah, it's right here. Here's Pleasant Valley. So this area, this is where the temple's at. But you can see that there's a bunch of other land owned all over the place. I don't know if that's for the second coming or not, but it could be. It could be the start of purchasing up land in this area, even though it's not Independence. It's in the metro area of Kansas City, possibly in preparation for the second coming, because I'm sure that this entire area will be converted into the new way of urban planning, if there is a new way once the second coming happens. I think there will be. There's this article. This is from Deseret News. This is actually from 1991, but I think it's good to look at for our purposes. LDS Church real estate holdings include farms, ranches, buildings. Okay. The Mormon Church's real estate empire easily exceeds $1 billion, including farms. Again, this is 1991, including farms and ranches in the West and Midwest, buildings and apartments on the West Coast, and a huge chunk of land in Central Florida. I think that's that ranch that we were just talking about. The Arizona Republic reported Tuesday. Given its enormous income from tithing in business operations, it appears the church is investing several $100 million a year in securities and real estate, the newspaper said, in the third installment of a 4-part series on the holdings of the Utah-based church. Quote, I would say they're probably one of the largest private owners of farmland in the United States, said John Scott, professor of land economics and farm management at the University of Illinois, although he hasn't compiled records to prove that. The church's most valuable land holdings, apparently, are in Arizona, Utah, California, and Florida. In its home base of Salt Lake County, the church owns $137 million in commercial and industrial properties as valued by taxing authorities. It owns large blocks of downtown real estate around its Salt Lake Temple, including 3 high-rise office buildings. So, see, it owns some high-rises. It's in Salt Lake, but a shopping mall, the land beneath other key buildings, and at least 230 residential parcels. California records show the church owns $67 million in commercial properties, including $15 million in apartment buildings in Stockton and Glendale, a $10.6 million office building in Anaheim, and a $4.5 million retail development in Fresno County. So let's just do a little exercise right here. Let's pretend that we inserted, 4 warehouses in Florida, even though the amount was, what was it, 127,000? Is that what it was? Let's go back up here. No, 174 million. Of course, there's inflation, so you'd have to take that into account. But even so, I don't know that would really stick out as we're reading the rest of this. So that's why I don't know that I necessarily think it's too big of a story. But anyway, it also owns at least 13,000 acres of California agriculture worth $34.6 million and vacant land worth $20.3 million. In Florida, the church owns what Orlando broker Trevor Hall says, quote, maybe the state's largest piece of privately owned undeveloped real estate, end quote. The 315,000 acre Deseret Ranches bought in the 1950s is home to orange groves and cattle, but its location about 5 miles southeast of booming Orlando has caused its value to jump. The church is planning to build a community with 5,000 homes and 4,200 apartments, plus schools, offices, and stores. I mean, like a whole community, basically a whole little town or city. In Arizona, the church owns at least 117 million in commercial and agricultural properties and vacant land, including about 6,000 acres of farmland and orchards in Maricopa County. These properties produce for the commercial market. These properties produce for the commercial market and are managed by Farm Management Company based in Salt Lake City, which administers the church's commercial farming and ranching properties. John Creer, who directs the church's Farm Management Company, said the church buys farmland because it is, quote, a good place to put savings account money. And that's why. It's a good place to put savings account money. Or at least that's one that's one of the main reasons. He said most of the land is rented to farmers. Quote, I think we look at it as any portfolio manager would. You take a portion of your reserve fund and you put it into a tangible asset. Among the number of tangible assets that are available to choose from, our leadership is very comfortable with farmland, end quote. Gordon B. Hinckley, first counselor to church president Ezra Taft Benson, touched on the philosophy during a speech in January. Quote, we have felt that good farms over a long period represent a safe investment where the assets of the church may be preserved and enhanced, while at the same time they are available as an agricultural resource to feed people should there come a time of need. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Garth Mangum, an economics professor at the University of Utah, said the church launched a large-scale land acquisition program after World War II. But Mingham said that well before the war, the church put unemployed members to work on its farms. So there's like a number of different things going on here. It's like multiple birds, one stone. One thing is just to keep the church safe, keep the church able to make it so that it's able to continue operating, so it doesn't have a deficit, so that it doesn't get into trouble like it had in the past, like a long time ago. It's keeping the church safe. It's keeping it's also providing this like welfare service, the church welfare program. It's also good for, these communities that have these different pieces of land, whatever it is. It's helping out with the local population. And it's also an investment. So, a lot of these, if not all of them, I don't know how it works, but a lot of them earn money, and that helps the church save for future projects, whether it's saving for a rainy day or whether it's building up a fund for some future project, maybe having to do with the second coming. Okay. Quote, even today, when they have most of their land leased out, they think of it as a strategic reserve. If some kind of calamity happened and we needed to go back to the soil, the land would be there. So that's interesting. Mormon scriptures add theological reasons. In the 1830s, before Mormons were harassed out of Missouri, church founder Joseph Smith wrote that Missouri was the site of the biblical Garden of Eden, and church members should, quote, purchase this whole region of country as soon as time will permit, end quote. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with some of this land that's owned in like the northeast part of the Kansas City metro area. Like I said, this area down here by Lee's Summit, I think most, if not all of it has been sold. So this was just like investment land. I don't know about like this over here. They do have like there's like a few places, around the city, but they still have quite a bit up here. I don't know if this is for investment or for some other purpose. Excuse me. A late Mormon theologian and general authority, Bruce R. McConkie, wrote that Mormon doctrine holds that the quote unquote New Jerusalem, from which Christ is to rule the earth after his second coming, is to be built in Jackson County, Missouri by the Mormon Church. In 1990, the church paid more than $10 million for 3,265 acres of farmland in Jackson County near Independence. The church already had bought at least 11,200 acres in the area. Over the past 10 years, the church has bought 2,450 acres in Davies County, Missouri, where Mormon doctrine says Christ will appear to receive the keys of the kingdom from Mormon authorities. And then, I don't know, let's see if there's something we can see up here. Yeah, this must be it right here. It is, because there's Jamesport. Yeah, so there's like a bunch of land and stuff up here. Some of it's agricultural in the green. And then the rest of it, I think, is vacant land. It's hard to tell between these two colors in the key. But I think you can click on this. Yeah, it doesn't really say what... It doesn't say what the purpose is. Anyway, so yeah, a bunch of land up here that's owned. Here's a pink one. Again, I don't know if that's supposed to be office or public and semi-public, but there's something right here. Okay. Let's compare that to other cities, though. Let's go to... Okay, that's Texas. I wanted to check out... There's Oklahoma City, so you can see there's not like a whole lot around there. I just want to compare it to like other areas. I think this is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So there's a bunch of land that's owned here, but it's all kind of like spread around. Man, I don't know what the heck this is. They own a lot of land right here. Must just be a bunch of like farmland and for ranches. Let's look at Denver. And it's all just kind of sporadic. And And then, of course, we don't need to really look at the Salt Lake area. Boise. I don't know. So the Kansas City area looks a little bit different to me just because you have like these big clusters right here. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4 different clusters. I don't know what that means or if it means anything, but anyway, let's move on. Here's another map. Again, I don't know if this is like the same source as this map on the Salt Lake Tribune. This is on Truth and Transparency, Religious Accountability through Impact Journalism. They also have a similar looking map. And this one actually, I think, tells you, yeah, it does. It tells you what the category is. So yeah, all this up here, this is vacant land. Looks like virtually all of it is. Let's zoom into Independence. Oops, sorry, it's a little bit laggy. So here's that piece of land right here where you have the Independence Visitor Center. So they own this entire thing right here, it looks like. And then across the street, public and semi-public. I don't know what that is, but there's something over here. You know, you go past the stake center, turn right, and there's something there. So there's like some pieces of land around here that they have. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, excuse me, 4 things of vacant land. So I can only assume that would probably be for future purposes for the building of New Jerusalem. If we zoom out and we look at these other locations, I'm not so sure. They could be, or just like Lee Summit, it may just be for investment purposes. I don't know. There's a lot of land that they own around the temple. So I don't know. I don't know how to really interpret these things. I'm not a business person. Okay. And then to finish this off, we're on Yahoo Finance. These are the top 10 holdings of the Mormon Church's 47 billion stock portfolio. So the church also invests in the stock market. At number 10 is Tesla. Number 9, ExxonMobil. 8, MasterCard. 7, Meta Platforms. 6, United Health Group. 5, Amazon. 4, NVIDIA. Click on that. Number 3, Alphabet, which owns Google. Number 2, Microsoft. And number 1, Apple. So that's interesting stuff. So hopefully that puts this into some context. It would be interesting to see what they're going to use it for, but I would assume it probably has something to do with e-commerce, and it's probably just some kind of investment. That's what my guess would be. But feel free to put your thoughts in the comments below if you have any other information about this, or if you have any other thoughts, anything that came to mind. I'd love to hear that. But that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.